Hi, this is Vanessa from Fox Farms, and I want to do a video on planning your fence, and then I'll do a few videos on actually installing your fence. So the planning part's pretty important. If you don't spend time planning it, then you will interrupt your installation with a need to plan. I really enjoyed planning. I could do the math over and over and over again for planning. It does take a bit of math and geometry and a paper and a pencil. First, you want to walk your perimeter, decide where where you want the fence line to be. You can see in the background a tree line around most of our pasture. So if you have a tree line like this, you want to decide how far from the tree line you want to be. We're going 15 to 20 foot from the tree line, so we can get a truck around and be able to visit the neighbors. It's our shortcut to see the neighbors, and be able to do some tree maintenance if we have a tree down, or if the forest is trying to grow in onto your grassland, which it's going to do if you don't actively keep it back. So we walk in your perimeter, or use a golf cart or vehicle, however you choose to get around it. Look at the angles, and every corner that is more than 30 degrees gets a corner post assembly. And a corner post assembly has got a corner post, which we're using 6 to 7 inch, so that's one the top or bottom. One is 6 inches, the other is 7 inches wide, and it's 8 foot long, so we'll call it a 6, 7, 8. So it's got one of those corner posts, and then it's got 2 vertical brace posts, which we're using 5 to 6 inch that are 7 foot long. You could use an 8 foot long if you wanted to, and then it gets 2 brace horizontals, and we're using 4 to 5 inches that are 8 foot long. So each corner assembly's got a 5, 6. We're using a 6, 7, 8, 2 5, 6, 7s, and 2 4, 5, 8s. Right, that's the numbers and the way you describe it when you buying your wood. So you're going to walk around and count how many times you have a corner that is more than 30 degrees. Now you can save money on corner posts by not rounding, by just making sharp 90 degrees, or not stepping your posts around the corner, but then you lose pasture. Or you could round it around your pasture and get the most pasture and spend more on corner posts. And if you really wanted to do math, which I didn't do, you could figure out how much pasture you're actually gaining, and is it worth the money you're spending on a post over the long term. I decided to just keep as much pasture in as I could, so I'm rounding where I can to keep pasture. And so I'm spending a bit more on corner assemblies. I'm using about 13 corner assemblies per field, and I'm fencing a 10 acre and a 5 acre piece. So once you've counted up your corner assemblies, you know how many of those types of wood posts you need, and each corner assembly is going to take up 16 foot of line space. So count up the rest, and everywhere in between those corner assemblies, we're putting 20 foot distance between, so that our line posts are going 20 foot each post. And the line posts I'm using are 4, 5, 7s. And I read so much variance on how far apart the line post should go. If you're in the Midwest and you've got hundreds of acres, you've got a huge place, and you get an open ranching, people tend to use 100 foot spacings. If you want a really fancy looking fence, go close. So I went with 20 foot. It looks nice and fancy, and doing it that way, I am still making sure I don't tension it, the top couple of wires too tight. I want the top wires to have some bounce, because the benefit of lots of space in between posts is an animal can hit the wire and it won't snap, because there's enough stretch. Where the closer you put them, when you tension it up, those posts are going to add tension. You're not going to get a lot of give if something hits your fence, whether it's an animal or a tree. Now, my cows aren't spooky. There's no ways my cows are going to hit a fence. I say that now. Definitely there's plenty of potential around here with all these woods for trees to hit the fence, and a tree came down at the one section where we had a 20 foot distance, and it kind of went diagonally and missed the fence. I'll see what happens. I'm bound to get a tree on the fence. It's going to happen. I'm just too close. I have woods everywhere here. So I try and keep the top 2 lines not that tight, so that they have give, because I have my spacing so close. If you go 50 to 100 foot spacing between your line posts, you won't really have issues like that. People like to do that for horses as well sometimes. So you read a couple of different things, and I just decided to go with 20 foot. As far as counting up those numbers, so you've counted your corner posts, and then in between mark off count up how many line posts you're going to have given that math. So let's say if there's a 100 foot distance between where your one corner post ends and then the next one begins, then you've got 5 line posts if you're putting them 20 foot apart. You can either do it by walking a wheel stick and using a pink spray paint or a pink flag. I did that. I also used an online GIS program to actually map it and mark it and measure it with a map. There's some pretty handy GIS tools available these days. And so now you've got your posts counted up. When you're ordering posts, lumber companies normally sell them in bundles, right? Line posts are bundles of 65. Corner posts are typically bundles of 45-ish, and they don't really like to break the bundles. Some smaller lumber companies will sell you post by post, but the larger bulk purchase lumber companies will sell you in a bundle. I don't mind having excess posts because I might change my mind and do something different and try and fence with one of the wooded sections, who knows. So I don't mind having extra posts. So now you've got your posts counted up. Decide how you want your wire spacing. Your wire spacing is going to depend on the type of animals you're fencing in. Because I have goats, sheep and cows, I want closer line spacing for predators. So I'm going with 6-strand high tensile electric, and from the bottom up I'm counting 6 inches, 6 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches, 10 inches, and that's going to give me about a 46-inch fence height. So count up your total perimeter, times it by 6. That's how much wire you're going to need just for your line fence. Now that's you still got to put wire in your brace assembly. So there's different ways of doing brace assembly wires. Figure of 8s. I'll show you when I do a brace post assembly video. But there's different ways of doing it. You probably want to save about 30 to 40 foot of wire per brace post, depending on the method you're going to use. So count up the perimeter. Let's just for ease of math. Let's say you've got a 100-foot perimeter and you're going to do 6 lines. That's going to be 600 foot. Count up how many corner post assemblies you have, and times that by 30 foot, just to give you enough plus a little bit of extra to your wire assembly for your brace posts, your corner posts. And then you've got the total linear foot of wire. And it's always a good idea to give yourself a 10% extra in case you cut wrong here and this wire curls up and you don't feel like untangling it. And just having a little bit of extra is a good idea. Now you don't have to buy it all at once. You can buy as you go. It's taken me months to put up my fence because I also have a day job and a 3-year-old who is pretty clingy at this stage. So it takes me a while to put it up. So I'm buying some of the stuff as I go. I'm not buying it all at once. Then you're going to need attachments. So we went with 2-inch sparred staples to put the wire in, and you're going to need 6 of those per line post. And you're going to need some insulators. So per line post you're going to have 6 staples, you're doing 6 wires, and you're going to have an insulator. So at each point that you're attaching it to the post, you want an insulator and a staple. So you add up how many staples and insulators you got. For a corner post, anytime you're going around a corner, you don't want the short 4-inch insulators, you want to get the nice long 18-inch, 24-inch insulators, so that you can go around without your wire touching the post. So count up how many per line, per corner post assembly. And then you're going to need some tools. So to get the staples in, you need a big old mallet. I like the heavier mallet. I'm trying to think how many pounds is it? A 5-pound mallet head I have. I'd have to look it up. So you need a good old mallet to whack those nails in, or those staples, sorry. To dig the holes, we're using a tractor mounted auger. Works pretty well. We're using a 9-inch auger bit for the line post and a 12-inch auger bit for the corner assemblies. And we're throwing concrete in our holes, so I'm using one 80-pound bag of concrete per brace post. So each brace corner has got 3 verticals and 2 horizontals, so that's 3 bags of 80-pound concrete per corner assembly that I'm doing. And I've read different things about to concrete or not, to put gravel or not, to put nothing or not. And everyone that I've read their blog seems very dead set on their method. Concrete's the best, and the next guy says gravel's the best, and the next guy says nothing is the best. So I went with concrete, and we'll see how that works. So concrete's not that expensive, a couple dollars a bag, and I'm throwing a bag in per. Now, when I was researching about how to dig these holes, you want to choose the method you're using. And when you put in the post in with a post hole digger, which is the super quick automatic way to do it, you want to put the narrow end in first. So there's a wider end and a narrow end. You want to put the narrow end in first if you're pounding the post in. But if you're drilling it in with an auger and then you're tamping the soil down, you want to put the wide end in first and have the narrow end at the bottom. So that fell was pretty loud here. I've got him in a bag, in a carry bag. I need to take him inside and take a look at his foot, so he's not happy. Anyhow, so while manually putting these in, you got the wide end down at the bottom. And I read about digging a bell shape, but if I'm putting a auger bit in the ground, I didn't go ahead and take a shovel and dig a bell shape at the bottom. I thought that was going to be just too crazy difficult for the amount of posts I was putting in. So I just went ahead and dumped the bag of concrete in. It works a lot better to dump a bag of concrete in a hole that you dug with a 12-inch bit than with a 9-inch bit, because by the time you fill up the sand or the dirt on top of it with a 9-inch bit, you've already used up all the space with the bag of concrete, and then you've got concrete overflowing your hole, and that's a pain in the butt, because you're going to rake that out of the way. Otherwise you've got a mound of concrete on the ground, and that gets in the way of your wire spacing. So now you've planed your posts, your wire, your electrical connector, and your staples. Electricity, I have fun with that. Electricity is not for everybody. You need gates, and most of your electric work is going to be around the gates, because you need to be able to hook up the power underneath the gate. So choose a charger. Again, I read so many different things about how to choose the joules of the charger. So I just went with 1 joule per mile of individual fence. And I know some posts I read say if you've got 6 strands, and let's say you've got one mile of fence, you want 1 mile of, you want a joule per mile, 1 joule. And other posts will say, well, if you've got 6 strands and it's a mile, then you've got 6 miles of fence, which you literally do. And so go with 6 joules. So that's what I did. I decided I'd rather have more than I need than just discover that I have not enough. So for future expansion and subdividing into rotational grazing, I went with a 16 joule capacity charger for the 10-acre pasture. For this 5-acre pasture, I'll get another 16 joule charger and make sure I have enough juice for everything. And then you'll need connectors. I really enjoy the electric part, and I've upgraded the way I connect the fence, and I'm going to still make more upgrades to it. Initially I made my connections using the fence wire, and I discovered that left gaps or space from one wire to the next for an arc, and I ended up draining some of the power off that way. So I changed out my connectors to use 20,000 volt insulated underground cable. So let's just talk electricity for a minute, right? So you've chosen your charger. It's going to either be solar, battery, or mains, and that depends on your access to electricity. What's the nearest access point? Can you plug it in, or do you want to do battery, or is your only option solar? I find the solar chargers don't give me enough joules that I want, so I went with main, and I'm just going to dig a line in the ground and bury a big cable. For the gates, you want to get the electricity across the gates, so you'll need to trench a hole underneath the gate to get the electricity from under this gate to the other side of the gate. You want to go at least 2 foot down. I've got a subsoiler that I'm going to use to trench this pasture. That one I did manually with backhoe. Subsoiler is going to make it a lot easier. And I recommend you leave it uncovered until the last thing, right? Until you're sure you don't want to put any more wires down there. And you're going to use a 20,000 volt insulated underground cable. So I went with at first all hot and then a ground system. And then I decided to put the second wire as a ground because I was having trouble maintaining my voltage, and that helped out. So I took the second wire, and instead of that being hot, I disconnected that from the charger and I connected that up to the ground system. But that means I'm not making a continuous loop, because when I get to the gate, I didn't initially put another ground cable to get under I put a cable to get number 2, that's now a ground wire, to the other side, because I had them all hooked up together. So the moment number 2 as a ground goes from one side of the gate, boop, and stops at the other side, and I kind of think I should be making a complete circle there. So I'm going to dig into that line again and add a cable so that I can attach from the 2 wire on the one side of the gate to the 2 wire on the other side of the gate. And then the rest of them, number 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, are all jumped together. So you'll need connectors to jump those, and I'll show you a video on how I installed it and show you the type of connectors I used. I went with the spliced bolts. I changed up my electrical configuration a bit. I like how it is now, but I need to add a wire there. And that's what I say, when you first put it in, test it. I'd suggest leave it uncovered for a couple of weeks and see what it does in the rain, because moisture is going to cause you to discover how good your ground system is, right? When it rains and you've got a little bit of a gap between a piece of wire and another piece of wire, and they're bare wire, then that's when you really start to see a loss of voltage. So I ended up losing 2,000 to 4,000 volts, and I corrected that by going through and replacing my bare wire all with 20,000 volt insulated underground wire. And that goes for the connection from the charger to the jumping the 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 wires. And next thing I'm going to do is go around to all my corner assemblies and change out those wires, because when you're putting wire in, it's not going to be one continuous wire, right? The first wire I did at the bottom to help me make a straight line to mark, I tried to put one continuous wire, and I had 13 corners and a 3250 foot perimeter. So by the time I got 3/4 of the way around and I was pulling it behind the truck, I snapped that wire. So you need to know how long your fence is, not only to get the correct amount of wire, but also to know how to divide the tension on the wire. So you should use tensioners, and I have a tensioner spring for every single tensioner, so that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to snap that wire. I can see once the spring is all squeezed in that there's no more, no more tension I want to apply to that wire. So to count up how many tensioners you need, right? One tensioner is going to hold the pressure of 4,000 foot of wire, but corners are going to eat into that. So you're going to count up your total perimeter length. Let's say I had 3,250 for that, and then I had 13 corner assemblies, and that includes 90-degree corners, 170-degree corners. Well, not 170, that's not a 30-degree angle. Anything more than 30 degrees is not necessarily a 90-degree corner, right? As I was stepping it around corners to keep partial in each of those, counted as a corner assembly, and they use up the amount of pressure of 500 foot of wire. So that one 16-foot corner assembly, 16 foot of it, uses up the same amount of pressure as a 500-foot section of wire. So count up your corner assemblies. If I had 13 times by 500, add that to the length of your wire. So let's just do easy numbers. We've got a 100-foot perimeter, we've got 4 corner assemblies, right? So that's 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's 2,000 foot essentially, plus your 100 foot. So you've got really the pressure of a 2,100 foot line just in that math example. Then you're going to choose your, then you're going to divide that up so that each tensioner only takes the pressure of 4,000 foot. And then you've got to do some fancy math and figure out, let's say if I've got 100 foot of wire and then a corner, that's 100 plus 500, and keep working your numbers, adding up the linear foot of your line plus the foot that the tensioner takes until you get to 4,000, and that is the section that you want to include with a single tensioner. So then you can count up the amount of tensioners that you need, and I've got a spring per tension assembly. And once you put a spring per tension assembly, then once you've got that thing tightened, you're not going to snap your line. Try to think if there's anything else you need for your fence. Gate hardware. Gates normally come with hardware. They normally come with a chain to lock it. And so once you've got it all planned out, you're ready to start putting up your fence. You'll probably find you're ready to change something along the way. I've made numerous changes mid-construction. But that's the basic planning that you need to do to figure out how much of what you need and how much it's going to cost. When I originally put this fence in, Google, www.google said that it'll take $1 to $2 per linear foot, and that's just the materials. If you go get a quote for someone to put in a fence, it can get expensive. The quote I got worked out about $7 per linear foot. That was too much, so I couldn't do that. So that's why I decided to put it myself. So once you do your basic math and figure out what you need, roughly how much it's going to cost you, you should be able to do it for $1 to $2 per linear foot just for the material. The labor, your own labor is going to be pretty intensive putting in a fence, and that's going to be your initial planning. So I'll do another video here soon about installing the fence. I'll show you the corner assemblies and the electrical connections and how I work getting the electricity to the other side of the gate. All right, take care.